but you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
You want to hear a stat? From 2014 to 2020, the number of viewers went down 88% for Disney.
The beginning of a startling downfall. All of it, oddly enough, hinges on what was supposed to be a foolproof hit, the live-action remake of Snow White. The latest wave of revelations, fan backlash, and insider leaks suggests that this single film could push CEO Bob Iger out of power sooner than expected, and expose deep-rooted failures that have been lurking beneath Disney's polished surface. In its infancy, the Snow White remake was envisioned as a fresh, modern retelling of a timeless fairy tale. Early announcements sparked the usual excitement from fans looking forward to enchanting musical numbers and whimsical storytelling. However, behind the scenes, trouble brewed. Rumors surfaced that the first draft of the script underwent multiple rewrites, each with new angles that either clashed with Disney's traditional style or felt heavy-handed in delivering a so-called modern message. Production timelines got shuffled, budgets ballooned, and certain stakeholders within Disney whispered that this project was shaping up to be much riskier than anyone cared to admit out loud. At the time, Bob Iger had recently returned to the CEO seat, stepping in for a successor who never quite earned the board's full confidence. Iger's track record was legendary. He orchestrated the acquisitions of Marvel, Pixar, and Lucasfilm. He presided over some of the highest-grossing films of all time. He steered the company through expansions that seemed unbreakable, forging a global empire that stretched across streaming, toys, theme parks, and beyond. Yet for all his accolades, early chatter about Snow White being off track landed on his desk. He had an opportunity to intervene, to redirect the project, to ensure it aligned with that classic Disney charm. Insiders claim he chose not to. Instead, he allowed the studio's development process to unfold, trusting that whatever rough edges existed would be smoothed out before release. Little did he know, these seemingly small missteps were about to ignite an industry-shaking controversy. While Snow White marched dutifully to its big screen premiere, another film quietly gathered momentum, a Minecraft-inspired movie. On paper, it didn't appear to be a serious competitor to Disney's beloved princess brand. Early marketing for the Minecraft film was understated, primarily targeting gaming communities and families with a soft spot for block-building adventures. Yet something in that low-key approach resonated deeply with audiences. When the movie launched, it blew past initial projections, pulling in an astounding $300 million globally within its first weekend. That figure didn't merely overshadow Snow White's opening, it demolished it. By the time Snow White limped past the $160 million mark worldwide, the narrative had shifted from Disney's next big princess spectacle to how did Disney just lose to a game adaptation?
And there was no tension, there was no drama, there was like nothing in that set. All it was an empty movie.
Analysts began to question whether this was a sign of changing tastes, with families seeking simpler, less preachy storytelling. Others claimed it was proof Disney was losing its creative grip, unable or unwilling to adapt to new audience expectations. Fans on social media coined memes comparing Snow White's expensive production to the comparatively modest budget of Minecraft, concluding that Disney must have lost its sense of fun and whimsy somewhere between the script rewrites and marketing. Misfires. The board at Disney felt the sting. Shareholders started asking how a supposed juggernaut fumbled against a project many in the industry saw as a novelty. A single weekend's box office results can't always predict long-term success, but the Minecraft blowout instantly became a cautionary tale, something that every competitor could point to when claiming that Disney was slipping. The fiasco also placed Bob Iger squarely in the line of fire, as the man who was supposed to keep Disney at the top of its game. How could he let this happen? If the lackluster box office figures weren't enough, the Snow White remake had another glaring problem: controversy involving one of its stars, Rachel Zegler. Initially, many viewers praised her casting. She had proven her talent in earlier roles, and fans were curious to see her bring a modern spark to the classic princess. But as interviews and snippets of her public comments trickled out, backlash flared up. Some people felt she came across as dismissive of the original Snow White's legacy, while others found her remarks to be condescending toward the fan base that cherished the 1937 classic. Online discussions became heated, with fans dissecting every statement, searching for hidden disrespect toward Walt Disney's earliest princess. Meanwhile, rumors circulated about tensions between Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot. Speculation ranged from minor creative disagreements to full-blown personality clashes. Whether these rumors were accurate or exaggerated didn't matter. The media pounced, and the negativity overshadowed the film's marketing efforts. Instead of focusing on the story or the reimagined visuals, fans were talking about offset controversies, fueling endless social media threads full of frustration, disappointment, or outright anger at Disney for letting things spiral. That negativity turned into a swirling PR nightmare. Disney's public relations teams tried to downplay the drama, but it was too late. The brand was already tarnished by an avalanche of negative impressions. Meanwhile, Bob Iger's critics pointed out that he had at least a year, some say more, to handle the Rachel Zegler situation before it became public. If stronger guidance or more strategic communication had been implemented, perhaps the narrative would have remained focused on the film's creative merits. Instead, it looked like yet another example of a leadership team asleep at the wheel. Bob Iger's legend within the corporate world is practically the stuff of modern folklore. He was the man who brought Marvel, Pixar, and Lucasfilm under Disney's banner, fueling a renaissance of films that broke box office records left and right. He was also the CEO who launched Disney Plus, pushing the company into a new era of streaming that challenged the likes of Netflix. For these accomplishments, he earned near-mythical status among shareholders and employees who credited him with Disney's unprecedented expansion. Yet, in the wake of Snow White's poor performance, that sterling reputation began to lose its luster. Observers and analysts pointed out that Iger had returned to Disney to stabilize it, yet the company continued to produce duds. Critically panned projects, overspending on production, and tone-deaf marketing left fans shaking their heads. The fiasco with Snow White, combined with flops like the Accolade in the Star Wars universe, created a narrative that Iger's decision-making was outdated, or that he was out of touch with the fans who once adored Disney's unique brand of magic. Inside the Disney boardroom, tension rose to a fever pitch. Some directors wondered aloud whether Iger's business style, so effective in the past, was failing in today's climate. Others questioned whether the brand's identity had become muddled by trying to cater to too many agendas at once. Meanwhile, critics accused Disney of pushing forced messaging at the expense of heartfelt storytelling, turning potential hits into lightning rods for controversy. All of that heat landed on Bob Iger's shoulders. He tried to calm investors by promising a refocus on the core elements that once made Disney great: timeless characters, broad family appeal, and imaginative experiences that transcend generation gaps. But when Snow White bombed and negative headlines escalated, it became harder and harder to believe that a simple pep talk could reverse the tide. Observers asked, if Iger was truly the steady hand at the helm, why did so many new projects keep hitting iceberg after iceberg? In a move that felt straight out of a suspense novel, Disney's top brass reportedly arranged an emergency call to address the Snow White catastrophe. Accounts vary on what exactly happened behind those closed doors, but leaked details paint a picture of chaos. It's said that Bob Iger pitched a series of drastic measures, hoping to convince the board he had a plan to save Disney's faltering momentum. One of those measures involved shelving certain upcoming remakes, like a rumored live-action Tangled, so resources could be funneled into more guaranteed hits. More shocking was Iger's alleged proposal to remain CEO until 2028, 2 years beyond his previously stated exit plan. This bombshell rattled the board. Many members had already begun whispering about finding a replacement as soon as possible, citing frustration over repeated flops, the negative press, and a sense that Iger was clinging to outdated strategies. The notion that he wanted extra time, especially after Snow White's disastrous rollout, struck them as tone-deaf at best. Rumors suggest that at least 80% of the board opposed extending Iger's term, preferring to expedite his exit instead. They argued that the brand needed a fresh face, someone unburdened by the controversies of the past year, to steady the ship. The meeting ended with no definitive solution, but it was clear that Iger's grip on the CEO position was teetering. The board was no longer content to let him sail forward unchallenged. They wanted clear results and, if needed, a swift leadership shakeup. One word kept popping up in the aftermath of the Snow White fiasco: chaos. From the creative teams tasked with rewriting scripts at the 11th hour, to the marketing divisions unsure how to spin controversies, everyone seemed to be operating in panic mode. Projects were halted mid-production, while executives frantically debated how to avoid another high-profile meltdown. Some employees privately admitted they felt Disney had lost the spark that once made it the go-to source for family, fun, and timeless fantasy. Fans, too, became increasingly vocal. Comments and memes flooded social media, with many lamenting that the Disney they knew growing up, a studio that could make people laugh, cry, and dream, had become a factory churning out agenda-driven content. Others felt the brand was merely struggling to reconcile modern inclusivity with old-school storytelling, tripping itself up in the process. Either way, the public sentiment shifted from unwavering loyalty to cautious skepticism, sending waves of concern through every level of Disney's operations. Meanwhile, Disney's biggest competitors sensed an opening. Paramount, Warner Brothers, and especially Universal swooped in with strong offerings. A new wave of animated, live-action, and family-focused projects gained traction, sometimes filling the void Disney films once occupied. Analysts noted that the success of these competitors wasn't happening in a vacuum. Many longtime Disney fans, and even some hardcore loyalists, were actively seeking alternatives, upset by what they viewed as the mismanagement of treasured franchises and iconic characters. The board recognized these alarming trends. Between the tarnished brand image and slumping Disney Plus numbers, they saw that the entire company was vulnerable in ways it hadn't been for decades. Typically, Disney's theme parks could offset film-related hiccups, but even park revenue faced challenges amidst global uncertainty and changing vacation habits. For a company used to unstoppable growth, the specter of stagnation or decline felt particularly jarring. To make matters even more complicated, financial backers weren't willing to sit back and watch the company's value drop. Shareholders began demanding immediate explanations for the underperforming releases, escalating budgets, and repeated controversies. On investor calls, pointed questions about Bob Iger's leadership became the norm. Critics asked why so much money was poured into reshoots for Snow White, why marketing pivoted so drastically, and how a beloved princess brand could flop so unceremoniously. Even Disney's typically reserved financial partners started voicing concerns. Some threatened to redirect their capital to less risky entertainment ventures if Disney couldn't provide a clear roadmap to profitability and brand repair. Whispers circulated that certain high-profile investors were meeting privately with board members, urging them to replace Iger sooner rather than later. The fear was that if Disney continued on this rocky path, its stock price would follow, a nightmare scenario for an entertainment titan that had always been a cornerstone of the industry. Corporate insiders tried to spin the narrative, emphasizing that every company experiences rough patches and that Disney's robust catalog still held plenty of blockbusters in the pipeline. But shareholders weren't in the mood for platitudes. They wanted tangible results, a strategy that would not only recoup losses, but also restore Disney's iconic status as a cultural beacon. The tension between appeasing shareholders and maintaining creative freedom for new projects only deepened the sense of crisis. While the public fixated on Snow White's flop and Bob Iger's shifting timelines, something else was brewing at the highest levels of Disney, a quiet yet determined search for fresh leadership. Reports indicated the board was combing through a short list of candidates, some from within Disney's ranks, others with no direct ties to the studio. Each candidate brought a different philosophy about how to handle modern storytelling, navigate controversies, and manage the company's ambitious DEI initiatives without alienating the traditional Disney audience. One rumor circulating suggested that certain board members championed a dynamic outsider, someone who could break the cycle of safe but stale decisions and revitalize the magic. Others believed that Disney needed a familiar face, a person deeply rooted in the company's values and brand identity, who could repair the damage without uprooting the studio's core. Whichever direction they leaned, the priority was crystal clear. The board wanted a leader who could adapt, innovate, and prevent Snow White-level debacles from ever happening again. Complicating matters further, not everyone on the board agreed on how to balance DEI with fan expectations. Some felt that the concept itself was never the real issue. Rather, it was how aggressively Disney integrated those themes into its properties. They argued that skillful, subtle storytelling could unite audiences. Others believed the brand should focus on nostalgia and escapism, eschewing anything that might seem like a lecture. Bob Iger, stuck in the middle, tried to placate both sides, but his indecision only heightened the sense that a new era demanded new leadership. Stepping back, it's obvious that Snow White's failure is only part of a broader identity crisis gripping Disney. From the vantage point of fans, the brand feels adrift, wavering between attempts to stay relevant in a rapidly changing cultural landscape and impulses to cling to nostalgia-driven formulas. This indecision has manifested as a string of mishaps, each one chipping away at Disney's once unassailable reputation. For employees, the future looks uncertain. Some creative talents worry their projects will be shelved in cost-cutting measures, while others fear the next big meltdown if the board overcorrects and stifles new ideas. Morale has reportedly sunk in various departments as staffers scramble to distance themselves from controversies or wonder if their efforts will ever see the light of day. Meanwhile, consumers grow restless, bombarded with headlines that paint Disney as a corporate titan stumbling under the weight of its own legacy. And at the center of this vortex is Bob Iger, desperately trying to preserve his image as the man who once saved Disney from stagnation. He's granted interviews suggesting critics don't fully understand the studio's motivations. He's offered vague reassurances that lessons are being learned. But with each passing day, the conversation shifts from, will Iger fix the problem? To, who will replace him? The sense that his tenure might be entering its final act hangs heavily in the air, intensifying every misstep into an almost existential drama, as fans, media outlets, and analysts wait for the next bombshell development. A collective sense of anxiety pervades. Can Disney truly bounce back if the core approach remains unaltered? Is the brand destined to remain divided between those who champion modern messages and those who yearn for pure, timeless escapism? Every day, new rumors bubble up about potential deals with other studios, about scrapped film ideas, about secret streaming strategies to regain lost subscribers. Yet, for all the speculation, one thread remains constant. Disney is no longer the unshakable juggernaut it once was, and the final outcome of this crisis could be more dramatic than any fairy tale the studio has ever told.